Welcome back to Views with Hughes, Jennifer News. This is Jerome Hughes. Now let's go ahead and get right into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been about 10 or 11 days since we got the news that, the Acolyte, the biggest disaster we've seen from Disney Star Wars, was finally canceled. And let me just tell you, Amandla Stenberg, the lead actress of the series, was at the forefront of this $180 million catastrophe. Okay. Now, despite Amandla Stenberg and her involvement, the show had the lowest viewership of any Star Wars series to date. Yeah, predictably, the mainstream media went into overdrive trying to cover up for the Acolyte while a handful of fans had left, including those who supported Amandla Stenberg, tried to go ahead and convince themselves and everyone else that the real reason that the show got canceled couldn't possibly be because no one watched it. Okay, well, actually, just hate to burst their bubbles, but the truth came out and it wasn't pretty. Internal reports from Lucasfilm confirmed that this show with Amandla Stenberg was a massive disappointment. The viewership was so low that they simply couldn't justify renewing it. Now, despite Amandla Stenberg and her role in the series, it had nothing to do with some, YouTubers expressing their opinions. If it did, we'd be seeing a very different scenario at Disney and Lucasfilm right now. But the question on everyone's mind was, when are the stars, including Amandla Stenberg, of this fiasco, are going to go ahead and speak up? We saw Manny Jacinto post something on Instagram, and even Rebecca Henderson and an actress on the show decided to go ahead and just go ahead and blame the fans. But what about Amandla Stenberg? Now, surely she'd have something reasonable to say, right? Right? Well, Amandla Stenberg finally broke her silence on the matter, and you'd think that she might show some humility. You'd think that Amandla Stenberg might say something like, hey, we thought, we made a great show, but unfortunately, no one watched it, and it's sad to see it go. A lot of people wasn't feeling it, but that's not the path that Amandla Stenberg took. Instead, she didn't mention a word about how the show performed. Instead, Amandla Stenberg decided to attack the fans once again. And you know what? Are we surprised? Not even in the slightest. So we have here Amandla Stenberg even posted some stories on Instagram doubling down on her stance. The same Amandla Stenberg who halfway through the release of The Acolyte put out a diss track slamming, Star Wars fans and calling them racists if they had a problem with the series. Now, Amandla Stenberg posted, as you all know, an 8-minute video, most of which is just her talking about how grateful she is to the fans who sent her fan art and other stuff. But you know what? Of course, Amandla Stenberg just couldn't resist taking shots at this so-called toxic fan base, blaming them for the show's cancellation. Amandla Stenberg also talked about the rampage of vitriol that the show faced since it was first announced, claiming that they encountered hyper-conservative bigotry and vile prejudice before anyone had even seen the show. Oh, well. Here's the video.
Of fan art and ship art and fan theories and things that were just so beautiful and filled my heart with joy. And I just want to let those people know out there who supported us in that way, and supported us vocally despite and in the face of all of the vitriol that we received and the targeted attack, I would say, we received by the alt-right. Just that you were deeply loved and appreciated, and it made this job all the worthwhile for me, and it made all of the challenging elements of it completely worthwhile for me. And so that, plus my love of sci-fi and fantasy, and being able to be a part of the legacy of something that I so deeply value, and something that means so much to me and I've looked up to for so long. So I also just want to say thank you to Lucasfilm. Just everybody that I worked with in Lucasfilm, particularly Rain Roberts, my producer, was just had such like vision and hope and like such a mission for what we were going to continue bringing into the sci-fi universe and into the Star Wars universe. And it was a really beautiful, energizing, life-changing experience to be a part of. And I have to thank Leslie Headland, who just excuse my French. She's just one of the best people in the world. I think she's so incredibly talented and unique and kind. And I'll love her forever. And I love this experience with her forever. But at the end of the day, I also just want to thank everybody who watched it. Thank you for being so loving and supportive and excited and nerdy and awesome and I'll continue to process this for a long time. But maybe the last thing I want to say on the subject is that we all exist in the context of all in which we live. But I'm serious. It's not lost on me how the way that these events have unfolded is also due to the hyper-divisiveness of the time that we live in, that is driven, I would say at this point, by echo chambers of thought and algorithms that reinforce our biases. And I think that applies to everybody. But I think that in a particular sect of people, it manifests as a lot of fear for what is changing and a lot of hatred for anything that is other. And I would challenge us all and challenge myself to continue questioning what it is that I digest, and think critically about what shapes it. And let's vote, y'all. Let's vote.
Unbelievable. But yep, that's not surprising at all. So what does Amandla Stenberg say? Well, she opened up about, how the supposed vitriol toward the canceled series, and predictably, Amandla Stenberg blames bigotry, racism, and misogyny, the usual buzzwords. Now, according to Amandla Stenberg, those terrible alt-right-wingers are the reason the show got canceled. Amandla Stenberg claims that the Acolyte being canceled wasn't a huge shock after the so-called rampage of vitriol from toxic Star Wars fans. It's tiresome, honestly, and isn't it? But every time one of these projects falls flat, we hear the same excuses. They tell us, if you don't like it, don't watch it. We don't need you as fans anymore. They told us that. And then when no one watches it, the people who find it to be trash, they go ahead, turn around and just blame those exact same fans that they told not to watch if they don't like it. And it's the same pattern, folks. And Amandla Stenberg is just the latest in a long line of actors who follow this particular script. Bigotry, vitriol, prejudice, hateful language. How many buzzwords from Amandla Stenberg can we cram into one sentence, people? I mean, maybe Amandla Stenberg had them written on cue cards or something. After all, Amandla Stenberg is an actress, and she even admits that she hates talking off the cuff, and she prefers a script. Amandla Stenberg says, that's what she said, but that's really telling, isn't it? But let's go ahead and take a step back from this, though, and look how how this show starring Amandla Stenberg was criticized from the beginning. Now, when we first heard about The Acolyte, it was pitched as a female-focused Star Wars series starring Amandla Stenberg from Leslie Headland, the creator of Russia Doll and The Acolyte. And this was coming right after the disaster that was the sequel trilogy, and honestly, people were understandably skeptical. I was skeptical too. Why was the only thing we knew about the show that it was female focused? And after the failures of the sequel trilogy, this is what you announce as the next big thing. I mean, seriously, not to mention the fact that Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant was in charge. And don't forget, Leslie Helen deleted a ton of tweets right before this was all announced. Okay. It also makes you wonder what those tweets said, doesn't it? But back to Amandla Stenberg. Amandla Stenberg, being the face of the show, had to bear the brunt of these criticisms. And instead of addressing them head on, Amandla Stenberg chose to go ahead and deflect and blame the fans. And the crazy part about it, at first, fans didn't even direct any hatred towards her until she started saying something to the fans and insulted them. But as the show starting, Amandla Stenberg got closer to release, it became clear that the focus was not on making a great Star Wars story. Instead, it was all about virtue signaling, identity politics, wokeism, and representation. We saw the cast and crew, including Amandla Stenberg, stand up at Star Wars Celebration, and it was clear many of them didn't even understand what Star Wars is about. And they were more concerned with skin color as well as gender of people involved in making the show. And honestly, Amandla Stenberg, if you think that the only people who don't like the show are just toxic, hyper-conservative folks, well, that's not how these things work at all. That's not how you end up with the lowest viewed Star Wars show by a long shot. That's not how it happens. Amandla Stenberg needs to realize that blaming a small group of fans or the show's for the show's failure only highlights the real issues at hand. Okay. But the truth is, people just don't like the show. People didn't watch it, and that's okay. Now, if you like the show, fine, say that. But let's not pretend that the only reason it failed was because of some, as you called it, toxic fans. The root cause of the failure was the writing. You can have the best actors in the world, but the writing is just straight garbage. It's not going to save the show, and the Acolyte had major writing issues from the start. But instead of just taking ownership, Amandla Stenberg just decided to go on to say it must have been the alt-right that got the show canceled. Amandla Stenberg needs to go ahead and understand that this deflection only further alienates the fan base. But despite the so-called targeted attacks from the alt-right, Amandla Stenberg tells a small group of fans who did like the show that they were deeply loved and, of course, appreciated. But let's be real here. This doesn't give those fans much hope, does it? I mean, after all, Amandla Stenberg herself says she wasn't surprised the show got canceled because of the hatred that they received from the start. Amandla Stenberg and her lack of surprise also, speaks volumes about the disconnect between the creators and the audience itself. Nothing about viewership was mentioned. Nothing about viewership, nothing about the actual reception of the show, just complete and total denial, pushing the blame on what they claim is a small, loud group of fans who didn't like it. I mean, that's giving those fans way more power than they actually have. But the truth is, the reason people watch the videos of YouTubers, mine as well, and others like them is because what we're saying resonates with them. If people thought we were saying was nonsense, then they wouldn't keep coming back. They downvote our videos, but the fact is the vast majority of those people who gave this show a chance felt the same way we did, and that's why the Acolyte got canceled. But Amandla Stenberg, like many before her, keep blaming the fans, which only drives more people away. But you know what? Go ahead, Amandla Stenberg. Keep on blaming the fans. I mean, that's what you did halfway through the series, and it only drove more people away. No ownership, no accountability, just more excuses. It can't be our fault. It must be those bigoted racist fans there. Now, that's an absolute joke, to be honest with you. But at this point, what else can you expect from Lucasfilm and actresses like Amandla Stenberg, who they choose to hire? So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you might have this particular topic. If you enjoyed what I shared in this video, go ahead, smash the like button, and share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, and you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.